Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I haven't filmed in a little while, especially a sit down video, but happy new year. I thought the best way to wrap up 2024 would be to talk about favorite books from the past year, and we have a good few. We have about 12 books to talk about, and they were pretty great. I had such a successful reading year, and yeah, let's just get started. Okay, first book, I read her first novel the year before in 2023, I believe, which was Cleopatra and Frankenstein. Actually, I don't know when that was released, but Cleopatra and Frankenstein is one of my favorite books of all time, and I was so excited for Blue Sisters, and I can confirm it lived up to the hype. I was really afraid that it wouldn't be as good as Cleopatra and Frankenstein, and actually it was better. This is a really kind of a loose retelling of Little Women, and we're following the Blue Sisters. It is just such a beautiful exploration of sisterhood and relationships, and even every single character themselves. Learning about each of the sisters was just so beautiful, and Coco Mullers really just knows how to immerse you into a story. If you love literary fiction and just character studies, I would recommend reading both of her books. They're incredible. I love this book so much, and it's a beautiful book. So I really hope she comes out with some more books soon, but you can't rush these things. So as soon as she releases something new, I'm sad, but definitely recommend this one. Okay, next book by one of my favorite authors ever was Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This was kind of a reread, but I'm not even classing it as that because I first read this I think when I was like 17, and I just didn't get it. I just don't think I was paying attention. I remember like reading this in school, like during class, when I was probably like half listening and half reading, so I really wasn't paying attention. So I remember finishing it and I was like, I don't like this. But this time I love this book. This book was so good because I've read Normal People like a lot of times. I love Normal People. And yeah, Conversation with Friends was amazing. I think you have to know with Sally Rooney that you're going to go in with unlikable characters. They are not characters that you're going to love, or they're not morally perfect. They're kind of they're complex and they're beautiful, and I love having an Irish author who is just so talented. There are so many incredible Irish authors, and yeah, I feel really lucky to be from the same country. But yeah, I love this book. This book is set in Dublin, like all her books. It follows Frances and I believe Bobby. Frances and her best friend / ex-girlfriend Bobby, they meet this married couple, and basically it follows Frances, who is struggling with some health complications and also is involved in an affair. So is Bobby, and it's pretty complicated, but it is a really great book and I loved it. The next book is Down the Drain by Julia Fox. This is a memoir, and this is amazing. Say what you want about Julia Fox, but if you have not read this, I think you should just give it a chance. This woman has been through a lot, but she has lived like 10 lives. It is amazing, but also she wrote all of this by herself and it was incredible. She is so good at telling a story, and I would highly recommend listening to the audiobook. I listened to it on Spotify and it was so immersive. Every time I wasn't listening to it, I wanted to. I read it so quickly. I think I read it like in a day of just doing things and listening to it the entire time. It was amazing. It's one of my favorite memoirs that I've ever read. Or would you call it an autobiography? I'm not sure, but definitely recommend it. Even if you're unsure, there's a lot of trigger warnings, and beware, it is crazy. You're in for a wild ride, but it is so incredible. And yeah, her writing was amazing. I don't have the physical copies of all these books. Some of them are in Oslo and some of them I read on my Kindle. But the next book is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I'm sure you've heard of this book. It is a classic. James Baldwin, I actually heard recently, I think it would have been his 100th birthday this past year, which is so interesting that I read a book in that year. I didn't even realize that, but wow. Giovanni's Room is now one of my favorite books of all time. It is amazing. It is set in Paris, and our main character has moved there recently. He kind of has this woman that he sees, but she's in Spain. I think she's in Barcelona. And yeah, they're kind of not really sure what they want to do with their life. They're kind of exploring different options. He's living in Paris, he's loving, just kind of, he's not doing much, but he meets this guy called Giovanni, and it is so beautifully written. It is just so tumultuous, so like, it's like a forbidden love. They are two men in this time where, of course, this was not where this type of relationship would have been frowned upon, and I believe our main character is a lot older than Giovanni, and we follow, basically our narrator is talking about how much he loves this man Giovanni, and we learn so much and so little all at the same time, and it is just such a beautiful story. It's heartbreaking, and I will be reading this again 100%. It is stunning, and I can't wait to read so much more of James Baldwin's writing. It was just so beautiful and poetic. Okay, this next book was absolutely incredible, and I have not heard a lot of people talking about it, but I believe she's an Irish author who, this may be her debut. I will double check and I'll put it on the screen, but it is called Bodies, and this book was amazing. It was basically about this girl who is growing up in a really rural county in Ireland, and it is about all the men that she has unfortunately come across in her life, the men she's dated, the men she's had kind of one night stands with, or situationships, or all these things. And basically it's one of those kind of almost monotonous character studies where we just follow her life. And while that probably doesn't sound very interesting, if you love a good character study, I would highly recommend this. It's one of those classic sad girl, if you will, books. But honestly, I don't even know how to describe it because I don't want to spoil the premise, but it is incredible. But I don't think it's for everyone. I think if you can appreciate a story that not much happens yet so much happens, then I would recommend it. If you need a heavy plot, I wouldn't recommend it. It is definitely literary fiction at its core, and for me this was stunning, and it was one of my favorite books of the year. Obviously all of these are, but one of my top favorite books of the year. It's also quite short, but this girl is an icon, our main character, and there is kind of a plot twist at the end where everything's summed up, and she's a diva. I love her, so I would definitely recommend reading that if that sounds interesting, or just look up the synopsis and see if it sounds like something you'll be interested in. And if it is, definitely give it a read. Okay, next book is another memoir, and this book was so good. Now, I may be biased because it's from one of the actresses in one of my favorite shows ever, but this is The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop, and this came out on my birthday, so I was like, that's a sign. And it was so good. I read this so quickly. Kelly Bishop, the woman that you are. I love her. I would highly recommend you read this. She talks a lot about her time on the Gilmore Girls, but also she talks so much her life before the show, and she has just done it all. She's been in all kinds of show business. She was a dancer, she was on Broadway. She is so amazing, and it reminded me a lot of, you know, Just Kids by Patti Smith, not in the kind of angsty way or anything like that, but in the way that you're like thrust into Hollywood and theatre. But I loved how this was mostly in New York. It was amazing, and I love her so much, and I would highly recommend this if you love Gilmore Girls, if you like Emily, because this girl is just like Emily, but also not at all. I don't know how to explain that, but if you read it, you'll get it. I love this book. Okay, next up is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I love this book. It is unreal. It was such an incredible story. This book follows June, and kind of she has this rivalry with this author that she went to college with called Athena. Athena is incredibly successful and has, you know, best-selling books and is just everything that June wants to be. And basically, you find this out at the start, so don't worry. Athena dies in the beginning, and June just happens to be in her house when she dies, and when she's kind of freaking out that this girl has just passed away, she comes across a finished, kind of nearly finished, unedited manuscript by Athena, and one thing leads to another, and June finds herself copying the entire book and publishing it under her name. And yeah, we follow, basically this is, as it kind of says at the back, it's like a dark humor novel, which is an incredible commentary on the literary world, the publishing world, and also about like race and kind of how people of different race can be categorized into what areas they feel they can talk about or publish in. And yeah, this book was amazing. The end was a little bit rushed, I won't lie, but I still loved it nonetheless, and it was one of those books that I didn't want to put down. Okay, moving on. Next we have The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, and I had heard of this book for a long time and just thought it wasn't going to be for me, and I was definitely wrong. I only got it because I think it was like 99 cents on Kindle, and I wanted to read something kind of fast-paced for my flight home. And basically this is a short story collection, and this is incredible. I can't wait to read the other short story collections by this author. Each of these short stories were so grotesque and shocking, and I don't even know how she thought of these things, and it is just mind-blowing. These short stories are set in South America, and they are just, some of them have elements of magical realism, some of them are dark, they're all dark and twisted, and they all follow very disturbing themes basically, but the writing was incredible, and every single time I finished a short story I went to the next and the next and the next, and I just couldn't put it down. So I would highly recommend that if you are looking for a short story collection, or you just want something kind of to just shock you basically. Okay, next book is Gender Theory, and I adored this book. This is really similar to Bodies in that it is one of those kind of a character study through and through. We are following this girl's life as she is going through college, going through her early 20s, and all the mistakes and troubles that she goes through or makes, or her relationships. It has a really beautiful focus on friendship and how her friendships ebb and flow throughout her 20s, and how people grow and change, and it was beautiful. It is set in Scotland, and we follow our main character through college, through some really rough times, some really great beautiful times, and I absolutely adored it. It was so beautiful. Again, if you love kind of books that are just a character study, that just follow someone's life, then I would highly recommend it. If not, maybe it's not for you, but I would recommend that you give it a go. Okay, we're almost there. The next book is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. I normally wouldn't recommend a book like this. I guess it's like a thriller. Not really. It's like a mystery, dark academia, and it wasn't the most amazing book that I read, but it was so fun. A little bit long at times, but other than that, if you're looking for a short, because it was quite short, but it felt long. So maybe that's a deterrent for some people, but it was a fast-paced kind of dark academia. So if you've read all the dark academias you think that you can find, and you're looking for a kind of shorter one, or one just to kind of like quench that thirst you have for a dark academia book, I would recommend this one. It is really fun and really confusing. Each time that you think you know who did this crime that we're following, something else is found out, something else, and the end was so amazing and so shocking, and I found myself guessing up until the end, which I always love. I hate when I guess halfway through when I'm right, because it just feels like a waste. So I would highly recommend this as well. Okay, and the last book that we are going to talk about is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. This book was amazing. I absolutely adore this book. This was my first ever Kristen Hanna book, and I've read 2 more ever since, and this is still my favorite. This book is set in Alaska. We're following Lenny and her parents. It is set in the 70s, and her dad is quite an erratic figure, finds it hard to hold down a job and things like that, and basically they end up going to Alaska to live off the soil and just kind of get away from everyday life, to live off the grid. And this was an absolutely amazing story, and I would recommend this to everyone. Honestly, it is a story about childhood, about girlhood, about growing up, we have some difficult family dynamics, so there are a few trigger warnings in terms of maybe abuse, but Lenny growing up in Alaska goes through so much. We have to watch her try face the Alaskan winter and survive in ways that she like never thought she could have. So there's also a slight romance in this, and it is just, this story is just heartbreaking, but it is beautiful, and even though it's quite dense, it doesn't feel that. You just want to keep reading, and yes, it was such a surprise. It was such a beautiful surprise for me because I didn't think I would love this, and it was incredible. So I would highly recommend that everyone reads this. Okay guys, so those were all my favorite books of 2024. I really hope that you enjoyed. Comment your favorite books of 2024. Like I said, I love finding out books that people loved, so I can always add them to my never-ending list of books that I want to read. And yeah, I have some really exciting videos planned for the year ahead. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Bye!